Hi, thanks, Adam. Can we go to the slide? All right, yeah. So this is Jenner. I'm the senior product manager at Procore. What we do is we build software for the construction industry around the world. So what I want to talk about today is one of the reasons product can be performing better in different markets is maybe the processes are different. And this is actually a very common use case. So let's talk about it a little bit. Alba gave a great example of research that will help you build a solution that works. And we should all be following the framework like that. Imagine for a second that your research actually uncovered that the solution is generally okay, like they are compatible across these markets, but variations are important. Like there are make or break customizations that are needed, but their general solution is generally viable. So in some verticals, like insurance, construction, education is a big one, processes differ across regions significantly. And it doesn't mean that the content itself is different or the tools are different. If you imagine education, algebra is the same across the world, a calculator is recognized across the world. So we're not necessarily saying that your solution needs to change, but there's going to be some differences based on preferences. And construction example, for instance, is project management in construction is generally the same, but compliance changes significantly across different countries. So you have to do your project management slightly differently, not completely differently, but slightly differently. But sometimes it's enough for people to be able to say, without these variations, I can't really do my work within this application. Actually, Amy talked about how to widely think about localization. So we're not just talking about changing the language, but we're also talking about the laws, perceptions, structures, institutions across these countries. If you go to the next slide, we can talk about what can we do about it. So when we say make your solution flexible, we don't mean individual and bespoke solutions, obviously, because we can't scale that. Otherwise, you're just a custom code shop for every client that you're selling, right? What we want to do is add scalable customization to your tools and to make sure that it's part of your infrastructure and it has components that can be reused. So a good example for this is statuses, like I'm showing on the side in here. Almost a lot of tools, especially SaaS tools, use statuses, and they're very key because they're key indicator of a process and the progress made in that process. A lot of different tools can use that, but at the same time, you can't just translate it. Like you can't be like, I have an Canadian localized version, or I have version from Ghana or South Africa. You can't say that you're using these different versions specifically. It has to be custom to what the process is, but also what the compliance requires, what your local specific regional process actually requires. So why don't you then provide a flexible solution to set statuses for the customers so they can do it themselves? At the same time, though, you need to make it scalable because you can't have every part of your tool do their own customization because they will be making different decisions around how to customize these tools. One example I can give is, for instance, in what we use in our tool, and many others will too, you probably have some forms in your application, right? And these forms have fields. And many times people will come to you and say, well, my form is a little different. I would like it to include some more information, but the rest is fine. So what you can do is have a global solution that we have, for example, called custom fields, and you can build individual custom fields and reuse them in different parts of your application. So your tools individually don't need to build one, and it's a scalable solution from both a user experience point of view and also an engineering point of view. So you can make it flexible in that way. Let's go to the next slide. There are some tips for success, obviously. So first of all, you don't want to customize everything because that will be a UX nightmare, right? Because everything is just changeable. You want to provide some consistent experience. So what do you pick first? You need to prioritize for most impact. And here, the kind of research Albert talked about comes very handy because you can say, okay, what part of it do people need prioritizing and customizing? Which should I do first? And then you wait, and then you do research, and then wait, and essentially iterate on this idea. Doing your research is very important to know if the features are necessarily a solution or not. Maybe you do need a different feature, or maybe this is just a localization issue. How uniform are the needs? You need to make sure you cover the ground around that. And you build a unified and consistent experience. So it looks the same, it feels the same. It's not a disjointed experience across the board there in your app and in your web application as well. I hope this was useful, and we can talk more about how specific to implement it in your use cases and questions. Back to you, Adam.